Welcome back, friends. For both of you that watched me replace this axe handle, I promised I would show you how to do a leather overstrike protector. So if you want to see how that's done, stick around. All right, folks, the first thing we're going to do, as with all of my leather projects that I tend to do, is we're going to make a pattern. And for that, I'm just going to use a piece of 5x7 notebook paper. Maybe it's 5x8, I don't remember, but either way, I'm just going to fold that in half lengthwise. So that's going to be our center line. We want a symmetrical pattern, so by folding it in half and demarcating a center line, that'll help us with that. So the idea with this leather overstrike protector is that it's going to wrap around the front of this axe handle, and then we're going to lace it along the back. Now the front, where it's going to lay, is relatively flat. There's a little bump out right here, but the leather, especially when we wet it, should stretch over that nicely. And then I'm just going to cut the sides of our piece of leather, or our pattern, and then the leather, we're going to cut it to kind of follow this profile here, and then add some holes and then stitch it up. Pretty simple, straightforward project. So anyway, I'm going to start by putting that over the handle and keeping it lined up on the center as well as we can. And then I'm just going to take a pencil and I'm going to kind of trace. I'm going to leave, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch or so back from this edge, maybe a ½ inch, and I'm gonna kind of follow that around. So then I'm gonna, keeping this folded, I'm gonna cut along the lines there that we made, and that should give us a pattern. All right, I think that'll do nicely. Now, one more thing I'm going to do, just so that before we add copy this pattern onto our leather, I'm going to, while it's folded, I'm going to mark holes and kind of punch them just a little bit so that they show up on both sides. That way, we have sets of holes to lace through that match up all the way down that side there. And with this notebook paper being lined, I think it'll work out nicely to use that as, use the lines as kind of a gauge so that we can evenly space these. There we go. So keeping those about 1/4 inch in from the edge, I want to make sure there's enough meat there, enough leather, that we don't tear the hole out when we stitch it. Now I'm going to go ahead and stick this on the back side of some leather here, and use a punch or a nail or something to make those hole marks go through. So there, you can see on the back side, we've got our holes marked. Now we're gonna flip it over to the front side here. This is our working piece we're gonna use. I'm just gonna open that up and find somewhere that we can get our entire pattern on there, and I think that right there is about the only way we'll be able to do it. I'm going to go ahead and use a pen to trace that pattern onto there. There we go. And then of course we're going to go through and make our little marks for our holes. Then we can either punch or drill. Probably going to use a drill because I don't know where my leather punch is at the moment. There we go. Now you can cut this out with a good sharp knife, but I'm a fan of these trauma shears for cutting leather. It just makes easy work of it. All right, now that we've got that cut out, I'm going to go ahead and everywhere that I've got a hole marked there, I'm just going to use a, let's see, I'm going to use a 3/16 drill bit. I'm not sure what I'm going to use for laces yet, so I'm going to kind of err on the larger side just to make it easier to lace it later. But I'm go ahead and drill a hole with a sacrificial chunk of wood underneath there. Since I'm working on my kitchen table, I figure I'd rather not drill holes into it. All right, our next step before we actually put it on and lace it up is to get it soaking wet. We really want to soak the leather all the way through, and that's going to make it a lot more pliable and a little bit stretchy. That way it really forms a good tight fit on there. All right, now you can see that's good and wet. It's nice and floppy there. That's just gonna help it wrap around that axe handle a little bit nicer and then really conform to that front side a little bit. So let's go ahead and get it in position. I'm gonna clamp it to hold it in position while I lace it up. Try and get it centered as well as I can. I turn it over and just start working my way from one end to the other. I've got some waxed thread here. Thread some of that waxed thread through a needle and start stitching. And if you don't have waxed thread, you can always take some unwaxed thread and rub it across a block of beeswax. Make your own. I think I'm going to start by going from the outside to the inside and then vice versa. That way when we pull those, it wraps it nicely like that. And then I'm just going to work my way up and down, so then when I take this other side and come back over, I'll hit that hole there. In fact, to make that a little bit easier, I'm going to grab a second needle and thread this other end with its own needle. That way I can work them both back and forth. All right, we're just going to continue like that right on up towards the head. All right, there you can see we've gotten all the way up to the top there, and now to finish this off, I'm just going to tie a square knot here. Before I tighten that up, I'm going to give one more good tug to these to make sure that they're as snug as can be. There we go. And then for good measure, I might run this extra tail through these holes one more time, going from side to side, and then tie it off one more time. All right, now we're just going to snip those ends off, leaving an inch or so, just so that they don't come untied, and that'll do it. Hope that helps you guys save a couple bucks if you decide you want one like that for your own axe. Thanks for watching.